ascending order. So it's going to be a little bit easier. You won't need a calculator to do this question. Right, so the first question says, draw a box and whisker diagram to represent the data. So for this question, your minimum is 20, your maximum is 50, then Q1, right? Now Q1 is the median of the first half of the data set. So we have got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 values, right? So 2, 4, 6. So the average of those two, that will be the median, right? Then our median here is going to be our median of the first half of the data set is going to be 33. Q1 is the median of the first half of the data set. So it will be 33. Q2 is going to be the average of these two. That is 33 plus 33 over 2. It will also be 33. Then Q3 is going to be 39. That's the median of the second half of the data set. So that will be 39. Right? So if you want to draw a box and whisker, so for the first part of the question C1, I'll just let me use the proper line here. Okay, so if I have say 0 here, then 10, 20, 30, 40, and then 50. And so this will be say 0, that's 10, 20, 30, 40, and then 50. So our minimum is 20. So minimum is going to be here. Right, maximum is 50, which will be somewhere here. And then I've got my Q1, that's 33, that will be probably somewhere there. Right? Now, the Q1 and Q2, they are exactly the same. Right? And then Q3, we said it's going to be that 39, so that 39 is going to be somewhere there. Now, this box and whisker is going to be very different from what you normally see because of the fact that Q2 and Q1, they are equal. So when you draw it, it has to look like this. It has to look like this, whereby here we are going to have Q1 and Q2. Then this will be Q3, that's the minimum, and this is the maximum. Okay? Right, so it should look like this. Right? You should expect a question of this type in your metric paper 2 on the 13th of September. Right? Then the second question, so this is E1, they prove that 50 is an outlier by showing that it lies outside the interval. Right? So we need to determine what is the interquartile range, IQR, first. Right? Then we have to use this expression Q3 plus 1,5 plus IQR to prove that it's an outlier. Right? Let me move on to the next page. So on the next page, right, what I'm going to do, I hope you did this already. You should have done it anyway. So number 2, first we need to determine the interquartile range. It's equal to Q3 minus Q1. So Q3 is 39, Q1 is 33. So this will be 39 minus 33, and that will give you 6. Then the expression Q3 plus 1,5 times IQR is going to be equal to Q3 is 39 plus 1,5 times the interquartile range. Now that will give me 39 plus 9, and then we will get 48. Okay, are you following that? Right, now because Because Q3 plus 1,5 times IQR is less than 50. Okay? It's less than 50. What that means is any value which is more than this value is an what? Is an outlier. By outlier, we are saying the observation or that result is too extreme. So the upper limit of our range is going to be this one here. That's the upper limit. Any value which is more than 48 will be an outlier. So you concentrate on the lesson. So this 48 is a is our upper limit. What the question says, prove that. Therefore, we can say since Q3 plus 1,5 IQR is less than 50, therefore 50 is the what? Is an outlier. Which means when you are doing data analysis, you may have to discard that 50 because it exaggerates the results. Okay? Now we're talking about advanced statistical analysis. You can exaggerate the result. Alright? Are you following? Yeah, you may get a question like this, asking you to determine whether a specific value is an outlier, or you may be given data and then they will ask to determine whether there's an outlier that exists or not. So this is about what you do.
What would you do to an outlier but an robust no, it was less?
If it was less, then it would be Q1 minus 1,5 times IQR. So in our case, there our Q1 is 33 minus 1,5 times 6. So that will give you 33 minus 9, which gives you 24. Which means any value which is below 24, like this 20, it's going to be what? An outlier. So we have got two extreme values here. It's 20 and that 50. Okay? You following that? Are you following? Right. Then the next question, and these are bread and butter questions which you are supposed to get right. Then number 3 says, does this data set contain any other outliers? Now we're going to answer the question that we just asked Asher. Okay. Right? So for part 3 of the question, we'll just say Q1 minus 1,5 IQR. Right? The answer, it will be yes. Okay? It will be yes. Then we give the reason. So Q1 is going to be equal to 33 minus 1,5 times 6, and that will give us 24. Right? So any value which is less than 24 is going to be an outlier. Therefore, 20 is also an outlier. Okay? So those two values, when you are doing advanced statistical analysis, you may have to discard them. Okay, if you want to come up with a decision which is less biased, you may have to overlook those two values. Okay? Already I did my own survey recently. As part of my work, I identified some outliers. Right. Identify some outliers. They happen even in real life. And they can tell you lots of things as well. Right. Okay. Are you following? You cannot identify outliers without finding IQR. You need to determine what is the interquartile range. For you to find the interquartile range, determine Q3 and what? And Q1. Some of your calculators, as I told you, for ungrouped data, which is what we have here, they can easily determine the 5-number summary for you. The minimum, maximum, Q1, Q2, and Q3. Alright? Hope you are following. Then the next question, which of the statistical indicators, mean or mode, best represent the amount of time that 11 learners spend on Snapchat? Now, for this question, we cannot talk about the mean, okay? First, for this question, we can't talk about the mean, right? We have to talk about the mode. The reason, because there are more values. In this case, we have got how many 33s? Six of them. Out of 12 values, we have got 6 that are the same. So it would make sense to consider our statistical indicator as the what? As the mode for this question. Right? We have to consider the mode because there are more values that are equivalent to the mode. And our mode here is 33. Okay, this is the question says the time in minutes that 12 grade level learners spend on Snapchat. So it means 33 minutes is the mode. That's the number which appears more frequently in the data set. Therefore, our statistical indicator here cannot be the mean. It has to be the mode. Okay? Because we have 6 learners with the same number of minutes, or 6 learners who spend the same number of minutes. So the answer here, it says which of, okay? It doesn't say explain why. So the answer here will be the mode. Okay? You can't discard the mode here. It is very, very important. So among the 3 measures of central tendency, you have your median. It's not influenced generally by outliers, right? Because you arrange the data set in ascending order. The mean is affected by outliers, right? Just to take you back, okay, this is very important because I just want to take you back. I did this yesterday. It's part of the homework that I gave you. I just want to take you back to the lesson that I did the other day. You see this part here. I spoke about this part, right? The reliability of measures of central tendency. Your median is actually the best measure, okay? Because it is determined by the position and it is not sensitive. It is not sensitive to skewness and also the outliers, right? So generally, if you see a question asking whether is the median the best statistical indicator, in most cases it is, right? You can also have the mean, but the mean now, it is best when the data is symmetrical because it is affected by outliers. You see, like in the case of the example we have, that 20 and that 50, we have to eliminate them from the data set in order for us to have a better picture of what's happening. If we remove 2 values in a data set, it affects the mean. But the median is not affected. That's why it's a good measure, right? The median is a good measure. It's a better statistical indicator. Then your mode is only important when you have got a value with the highest frequency. Like in our case here, we have got that 33, right? Right. The next question now. We need to calculate the mean. Okay, is there anyone who has got any questions so far? Any question? Please remember in the correct order in terms of statistical significance. We have our median. It is not influenced by skewness of data and outliers. Then we've got our mean is affected by outliers. So the mean can change. If we consider the outliers, the mean is going to be a little bit higher. If we remove the outliers, the mean will be lower. Right? So when you remove the outliers, the mean becomes insignificant. Our mode is only important when there are more values in the data set that are the same, like in this case that we just did. And following that, then we have got this example here, but the question says, listed below are the top South African try scorers of all time, right? So we need to determine the mean and the median of the data set. Now, it says calculate, right? So you use your calculator, Right? Let's take out the calculator. So you go to mod, then number 3, that's statistical function, then 1 minus VAR. So I'm going to put the value 67, then 38, then 32, 27, 26, 25, 24, another 24, 20, then we have 19, and the last 19. Right? Once you enter the data, please, I expect you to do it as I am doing it. In fact, either wrong way or you should have done it. Right? Okay. Then you press AC. When you do grade 12 starts exactly what I'm doing here, you have to do it. Right? So now I need to retrieve my mean. So my mean is going to be shift, then VAR, that's number 4. So I want X bar. Right? So it will be 29.18. So I can write here X bar is equal to 29.18, which is approximately. We apologize for this interruption. Let's carry on with our lesson. So now in this case, right, this is our mean, right? We can round it off to a whole number, right? Because remember we are talking about tries. Tries have no fractions, right? So the best answer here will be what? 29. Okay, but you need to show this part here that you retrieve that value from your calculator. Then you approximate it to what? 29. Right? Then the median now, depending on your calculator, right? Depending on your calculator, if it can give you the median, then you can write it down. If it can't, then you have to rearrange all these data sets from smallest to largest, which will take you what? Time. So let's see if we can retrieve that data. And we've got in one, then we've got minimax, that's number 6. Fortunately, this calculator it can determine the median for me, so that's number 4. Right? So you get 25. What? If you don't have it, then you have to rearrange the data set. So the median here, we say Q2 is going to be 25. Now it will be 25 tries, remember, and this will also be tries as well.
So, in the exam, you get marks for attendance calculation.
Okay, generally, we are aware that you can use the calculator. So that is considered. So if you use the calculator, then you just write your answer.
Then you get full marks.
Yeah, you should get full marks. Okay, you should get full marks. Alright? Then identify any outliers in this data set. Now, to identify the outliers, you need to determine this interval. Okay, let me go to the next page. Fortunately, I've got all my information in my calculator, right? I don't need Q2. Let me retrieve Q1 and Q. Can someone write them down for me? I need to retrieve my Q1, right? It's going to be 20, right? Then my Q3, I need the Q3, is what? 32, right? I'm taking them from the calculator. So on the next page, right? The next thing is I need to calculate 2 intervals. So the first one is going to be Q1 minus 1,5 times IQR. Now, I don't have the IQR, so let me find that IQR first. It will be better, right? It will be better to find IQ. So my IQR is going to be Q3 minus Q1. What is Q3? 32. And Q1 is what? And then I need to find the value of Q1 minus 1,5 times IQR. This is going to be 20 minus 1,5 times 12. This will give me 18. 18 plus, so 12 minus 80, that will give me a 2. Right? Then I need to determine Q3 plus 1,5 times IQR, right? My IQR, or rather my Q3, is 32. I hope you are following what I'm doing, plus 1,5 times the interquartile range. This gives me 18. 18 plus 12, you get what? 50. Now what this means is, if any value is less than 2 or more than 50, then it's an outlier. So the question says identify, okay? So I've done my calculation. Already I can see that this is more than what? 50, right? That's the only one. So then you can say, therefore, 67 is an outlier. See, that is not difficult. It's not difficult. 67 is an outlier, which means that this 67, it really exaggerates the results if you consider it in your statistical analysis. Because it's an extreme value. Maybe this person here is too good. Okay? When you are talking about the playing rugby here, it means that person is very, very good. Okay? Right, then the next question says, what effect do the removal of the outlier have on the mean and the median? Now, this is interesting now. So, we have answered number one, we've answered number two, we've identified our outlier. Now, the third question now says, we need to calculate the mean and the median of the data set without the outlier. Without the what? The outlier. Now, the good thing is, you don't have to re-enter your data, right? I've already entered it. So what we can do is, we can go to our table, make sure you look at what I'm doing, please, right? Then we go to data, that's number two, right? Are you following? Yes. I'm not entering the data for the second time. So we go to 67, then we delete that 67. Right? Then after deleting, we press AC. We want the calculator to recalculate the mean, the median, and so on. Then you go to shift, then number one, then number four, then number two. Right? Now the mean has changed. Right? So our mean now, it's now 25,4, which is approximately 25, right? And then our Q2, right? Let's retrieve it. So shift and 1 and number 6, and then number 4. It's now 24,5, right? So this gives you 24,5, which I can approximate to what? To 25. Right. So the mean and the median, they're almost the same now. Remember what I told you, that they are measures of central tendency, so their values are very close. Sometimes they can be equal, but the equality case is a very rare situation. That's more like we are talking about the data being symmetrical. Okay? If the data is symmetrical, then the mean, the median, and the mode, they are almost the same. Usually the mean and the median, they will be equal. And then you have got symmetrical data set. So the purpose of removing the outlier is to create what is called a normal distribution, where the data set becomes symmetrical. Otherwise, I'm sure you can see that initially the mean was 29 and the median was 25. Do you remember what I told you when you want to determine whether the data set is skewed to the left or skewed to the right? You have to determine x bar minus Q2. If this is positive, like in this case, 29 minus 25 will give you a positive 4, which means if we include the outlier, the data set will be skewed to the right. Okay? It will be skewed to the right. So to eliminate that skewness, we remove the outlier, and then we end up having data that is almost symmetrical. Okay, let's move on to another question. Right, the other question which I gave you, I think it was on grade. Uh, Let me go to the question. Right, I think I need to bring it. Right, I gave you a second question on the ogive. Okay, the ogive. That was the next question. So let me go to that question quickly. All right.